All right. Thank you so much for hopping on, everyone. We're so excited. We're really excited to have you here and just answer all of your questions. My name is Sierra. I'm a financial coach, and I'm joined by 6 other amazing women who are in the personal finance industry. And we're so excited for you to learn from us today. We honestly had so many really amazing questions submitted. So we're going to try to do our best by answering all of them, and also just have a live Q&A at the end. But we have gone through and really looked at what questions have a lot of people asked, and what questions do we think you guys would gain a lot of value from. So we're super excited to just share all of our knowledge with you guys.
And then quick disclaimer before we get started. So my name is Charlotte. I'm a financial coach as well. We are answering questions from 135 different people. So none of these questions, like while they are being answered based on our knowledge and experience, this is not specific financial advice to any person that is part of this meeting. As always, if you ever have any questions, be sure to reach out to a financial professional, whether that be a financial coach, a financial advisor, CFP, CPA, whatever. Always work with a professional for specific advice on your situation.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get started with one of my favorite topics, and I think you guys are going to love hearing from her. Kendall, do you want to go and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Kendall. I am a money empowerment coach, and I help 100K earners pay off debt faster and build their savings accounts faster. And I do this through helping you heal your relationship with money, which is super powerful. So do you want me to get right into the question that I got about mindset?
Yeah, maybe let's go around and introduce everyone first, and then I'll ask you a question.
Perfect.
Cool. Alexia, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Lexa. I'm with the Avocado Toast Budget. I am on mainly video platforms, so Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at the Avocado Toast Budget. And I teach millennials how to survive capitalism by feeling more confident with your money, learning the basics, all of that stuff that we never learned in school that is so important.
Awesome. Ayana?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ayana Campbell-Smith. I am at millennialmoney.guide on Instagram, and I am a debt-free millennial money coach. I coach millennial women and couples on how to get unstuck with their finances and become financially empowered so they can ditch debt, save more, and win with money. And I'm super excited to be here.
I love it. Ditch debt, save more. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Miriam?
Hi everyone, I'm Miriam. I started Millennial Money really just to document my debt-free journey. I am a high school teacher currently paying down $40,000 of debt. I consider myself to be a money educator. I do coaching as well, but not that much really. And yeah, I'm all about budgeting, crushing debt, and building wealth. And I'm very excited to be here. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but thank you for having me.
We're super excited. And then Jess.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. I'm Jess from That's Common Sense on Instagram and my blog. And I share about my journey to financial independence and get more women and millennials and Gen Zers excited about investing.
I love it. Love. All right. We're so excited to have you guys here. We're going to get started with the questions. So Kendall, a lot of people ask, I feel ashamed of having debt. How do you kind of shift that mindset and kind of let that feeling go?
Yeah, so this is a big one, right? And I think that so many people think that if they have debt, that's just the normal response that they should feel, is they should feel just ashamed of it. And how I approach it with my clients is letting them know that first and foremost, to recognize that they get to choose their own feelings. Mm-hmm. They get to choose their own feelings, right? Feeling ashamed is actually our choice, which is pretty empowering because that means we have the choice to change it. That means we have the choice to feel a different way. Totally. So first off, recognizing that feeling ashamed is just a choice because debt is just debt. It's a completely neutral circumstance, and one person could have your debt, the debt that you're feeling super ashamed of, and feel like, oh my gosh, I only have this much of debt, right? And they could be feeling elated that they don't have as much debt as maybe they thought. So feeling ashamed is completely a choice. So first off, just recognizing that. And then that kind of helps you kind of take your power back and kind of reclaim that. And then secondly, like ask yourself, how do you want to feel about this instead? Because when we feel ashamed about our debt, chances are we're not taking the best actions when we're feeling ashamed, right? We're either hiding from our finances, we're avoiding it, we are not budgeting properly, or maybe we start a budget and then it's out the window 2 weeks later. And so ask yourself, how do you want to feel about it instead? Do you want to feel secure? Do you want to feel confident about your money situation, about, debt, and that you have a plan to get it paid off? And then knowing that those are options available to you right now. Like you can feel confident and secure with the current debt that you have right now. You just have to make that choice. And then from that space, like let's say you're wanting to feel, instead of feeling ashamed, you just want to feel confident. So let's say from that space, now what is it that you're going to be telling yourself? What kind of stories are you going to be telling yourself to feel like, to continue on that feeling of confidence? Because chances are it's going to be a very different story than what you're telling yourself when you feel ashamed. When you feel ashamed, right, you're thinking to yourself, I shouldn't have this debt. I'm so far behind. I make bad money decisions. I'm bad with money. Like you're thinking all of those things, right? Whereas that obviously doesn't create confidence. And so if you can just embody like the emotion of feeling like confident, then what stories are you telling yourself? You're probably telling yourself a more empowering story. Like, I have a plan. I'm working on a plan. I'm getting organized with my finances. There's no way I'm going to give up. Like those are all like stories that you tell yourself that will really create that feeling of confidence.
No, totally. I love all of that. Sorry, did you have one other thing? I didn't want to cut you off.
Yes, no. Actually that was it. Yeah. So just number one, recognizing that it is a choice. Like it is your choice to feel ashamed or not feel ashamed. And then making the shift to feeling like, how do you want to feel instead? And then from there, what kind of stories are you going to be telling yourself at that time?
Totally. I love it. And just how do you think the best ways are to improve your money mindset when it comes to, we all know what it's like to live outside of your means and want to be in a different place. So kind of what would you say to the girl who wants to shift her money mindset from either being in her financial means or not being in her financial means with her expenses?
Yeah. So I think it's really important to kind of let everyone know what a money mindset is, because I think that's thrown out so often and maybe somebody doesn't know exactly what that entails. A money mindset is really just a fancy phrase for saying your beliefs about money. And beliefs are just our most practiced thoughts, the thoughts that we think over and over and over. So if somebody grows up thinking money doesn't grow on trees, or you have to work really hard for money, that's a set of beliefs. That's your money mindset. Mm-hmm. And so you have the option to change that. Of course, we have that power. And so, ways to was the question ways to shift your money mindset?
Yeah, there's just ways to shift your money mindset when you live within your financial means or with the money I do or do not have.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can always shift our money mindset regardless of our circumstances, right? Whether you are in the red every single month or whether you have extra cash flow every single month, you can completely choose how you want to think and feel about money. So I think great ways to improve your money mindset, your beliefs about money, is to practice gratitude. Gratitude is the fastest way to bring a more abundant kind of lifestyle with money to yourself. So practicing gratitude, a really great way is every time you pay for something, whether it's your water bill, your rent, or the new pair of shoes you buy yourself, just saying thank you, kind of internally. Somebody might think you're weird if you're saying it to the cashier or whatever, but just really practicing gratitude and making some daily lists, 3 things that you're grateful for. Practicing gratitude. Another great way to kind of shift your money mindset is rethinking what you've been taught about money. Really asking yourself, what did I grow up thinking about money? And is this really even true? Is it true, or is it just beliefs that I adopted from my mom or my dad or, my grandparents? Where did I even get this? And do I even want to believe it? Is it even my own beliefs? Totally. A lot of times when we sit down and do this exercise, it's not. I had a really big one My parents were small business owners, and I grew up always hearing them say that owning a business is feast or famine. And I grew up thinking that. And so I was terrified to start my own business. Terrified because I'm like, I don't want to experience a famine phase. Like, no way. And then I had to do like my own money mindset work, right? To like get rid of that, to not believe that. And so, so we always grow up, like the people we are closest with kind of provide us with the money mindset. And then it's up to us to kind of undo that work. It's our responsibility to undo that work and really question to see, like, is it really even something we want to believe?
Yeah.
So gratitude, kind of rethinking and questioning your current beliefs about money. Another great one to shift your money mindset, which is huge, is talk about money like you would talk about your best friend. Like you would never talk about your best friend and be like, "Ugh, she's never there for me." Or like she's never there when I need her, or like, you know, any kind of negative energy, right? That you talk about money. Like so many people say, I'm so broke, I'm poor, I'm not good with money. Like, oh, that would be nice. Must be nice for her. Like all of those like negative things. If you wouldn't say something like that about your best friend, don't say it about money. Don't say it about money.
I love it.
Yeah. So talking about money like it's your best friend is huge for shifting your mindset, because guaranteed you won't say one bad thing. You won't say a bad thing about money if you're talking about it like it's your best friend. And then of course there's like reading books, like money mindset books are always so helpful and really empowering, just to kind of get the author's view on mindset. Yeah, I mean, I would say forgiving yourself is another really good one. Forgiving yourself for past, I don't want to even say mistakes because they're not mistakes, but forgiving yourself for past choices with money, for anything that you are holding like guilt or resentment for, kind of forgiving yourself for that and moving forward.
No, I love all of those.
Yeah, there's so many ways to shift your money mindset. But I would say like those are the greatest ones. Even just if you were to take one of those, like talking about money like it's your best friend, because when you get good at that and you start to like really get in the habit of doing that, you will notice the people around you, if they say a negative thing about money and you're like, ooh, nope. Don't say that. You notice it all the time, which is so funny. Like my husband, I'm a, like money mindset coach, and my husband really doesn't like he's like not into the mindset stuff like I am, right? But even he will notice it. Like if his brother says something or if his friends say something bad about money, he's like, oh, nope, they got a bad money mindset. So it's really fun. Even that exercise right there is plenty enough to shift your mindset from a lack or scarcity to abundance.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Those are all really helpful tips. And I know everyone can definitely benefit from doing money mindset work, because it seriously impacts every decision that we make financially. So Sierra, tell us a little bit about sinking funds and how you go about creating them. I know we had a lot of questions come through about like when you are using sinking funds, how do you save for them? But then more specifically, how do you organize those savings? Do you like to keep them in one lump sum account or break them up?
Yeah, totally. I think they're all really good questions. So a sinking fund is essentially a strategic way to start to save money by setting aside a little bit each month. And so essentially what you will have is either one category or multiple different categories that you are saving money to. So it could be for a vacation, it could be for car repairs, it could be for holidays, birthdays, whatever you are like, I need to put money aside to be able to pay for this later. And I personally do not have them in multiple different accounts. I think it's just really hard to organize that way, in my own personal opinion. What I do is I have everything in my budget, and I have a little section on the bottom that is sinking funds. And I just have a little tracker that says like, what is in this account? Do I have 500? Do I have 400? And then that's kind of how I keep track of what I'm putting in there each month and what is allocated to what. And so, for example, if I have $500 in my car repair fund and I go and I don't know why I always come up with windshield wipers, but that's the one I use every single time. And I go get my windshield wipers fixed. Then I know I need to take $50 out of the car repair and put 50 back to have that $500, if that makes sense.
Right.
And it's essentially just setting aside money that you're going to use for later. It's a way that you can be really intentional with your money and not just have a general savings account for everything and anything. And the other thing that I want to say is that a sinking fund is different from an emergency fund. And a sinking fund is all of the expenses that you are planning for. And an emergency fund is everything that you are not planning for to happen, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, they wonder, where is the best place to keep this money that they are setting aside for these different expenses, whether that be their emergency fund or their sinking fund, or their sinking fund. So Miriam, would you mind telling us about the two major different accounts that people asked in these responses for our event today? And that is a high yield savings account and a money market account. What are the differences between them? And how do you go about picking an account that's right for you?
Okay. Hi, everyone. So the difference between a money market savings account is a type of savings account, usually higher interest rate or higher APY than like a traditional savings account. But the caveat with most money market accounts is that they have a higher minimum balance, meaning that there's like a required amount of money that you need to keep in there at all times. There are money market accounts that have lower minimum balances, but the way they're kind of tiered. So like if you go to some banks, like I know I have Navy Federal, like they have lower tier money market accounts, but like the lower, oh, you can't hear me? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, all right.
Can you hear her better now?
I'm gonna try to get close. I don't know. Let me know if you can't hear me. I'll try to get as close to my computer without being creepy. But yeah, so most banks still have like tiered money market accounts, meaning like the interest rate depends on how much like the required minimum balance is, right? So it really just depends, right? How much money you have in a bank account, and if a money market account is right for you. The other thing about a money market account is you could write checks from it, and you can't necessarily do that with like a high yield savings account. Usually high yield savings accounts, when people are talking about those, they're talking about bank accounts that are at online banks, like Ally or SoFi or Marcus or like a bunch of other ones. And they also have higher interest rates, right? So that's a high yield, like yield is APY, an annual percentage yield, right? So deciding on which bank to hold your emergency fund at or your sinking funds at now, honestly, like it used to be like this, like, oh, this place has higher interest than this place, but now all of them honestly are the rates are dropping, and it's just choose one. Like I just feel like just choose one and just put your money into it, because they're literally like constant every month. Like I'm getting an email from Ally or from SoFi or for whomever. I have so many bank accounts, but they're all dropping. So I mean, I think putting it in any of those, just find the one that has the highest interest rate at this moment and put it in that one now. There's no like need to like just chase the interest rates around, because it's just a headache, like having to move your money around all the time. And what was I gonna say? I think that's it. Wait, did I answer your whole question?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
That was a great answer.
Okay.
Love it.
Awesome. So I know when people are thinking about all of these different savings goals and they're managing, maybe their debt repayment goals, whatever, how do you decide specifically like which savings goals you want to accomplish, and how do you set those goals? Sierra, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I answered the question a little differently because it's different, but I will answer it for everyone. I personally have always looked at goals in general and also savings goals as almost baby steps. And I hate to say that, but that's how I think of it. Because I personally, when I came into the personal finance industry and started to pay off debt and save, I felt so freaking overwhelmed of like, what do I do first? What is next? So I honestly broke it out as little steps that I had to do to get to the next spot. And so when deciding to accomplish first, I always thought to myself, like, where am I at right now and where do I want to go? And then what baby steps do I need to break up to get me from point A to point B, if that makes sense. And so, for example, if I need an emergency fund next in my financial journey, then I would look at how much do I need in my emergency fund? When do I want to have my emergency fund funded by? And how much do I need in that emergency fund? So, for example, if I need to have $10,000 and I want to have it by the end of the year, then I need to put away $833 a month. But when I ask myself, is that doable? Like, is that in my budget? And is that something I can actually afford? And for me personally, my answer would probably be no right now in my life. So then I need to either extend my timeline or bring my savings goal down to be able to accomplish it. For me personally, I am someone that is not motivated by hitting yearly goals. I lose track of them really quickly. So what I found helpful for me was setting goals for 1 month, setting goals for 3 months, setting goals for what do I want to do this week? Because I am someone that I am not motivated by a year-long time span. I get lost in what I'm trying to do. So that is what works for me. I found it a lot more digestible and not so overwhelming. The other thing that I have always tried to use is to use SMART goals, and to try to remind myself constantly that personal finance does not have to be a big money goal. Like, you can make a goal to put $25 away. You can make a goal to have $500 in your savings account, and then freaking celebrate yourself, because personal finance is so hard and the journey is so long. So celebrate the wins, be proud of every single thing you accomplish. And if you miss the goal by $50, still celebrate yourself, because it is so hard. That's my answer for that one.
I love that. And studies show too that the smaller you break down a goal into those little actionable steps, the more likely you are to stick to them. So that is fantastic. And yeah, celebrate your wins. So when it comes to achieving these goals and these savings goals, Ayana, would you mind telling us some of your favorite methods when it comes to saving money?
Absolutely. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. My headphones are sounding a little weird, but I love everything Sierra just said. And just to piggyback off of it, I do think that when it comes to savings methods, one of the big things that I love to teach my clients is the importance of setting goals. Even if you are someone that's not motivated by a year-long timeline, actually getting really clear on what it is you're working towards is step number one in actually achieving these things. Because many of us, it's very easy to say, I'm going to save $5,000 this year. That's like a dream. It's not really like an actionable plan. But when you have a goal and you're really clear on what you're doing, I think that you can be much more successful. And so one of the things that I really like to teach is about the 3 W's of intentional financial goal setting that helps you create goals that are both time sensitive and very specific for what you're going to do. And so the 3 W's would be your what. So basically, what is the amount that you're saving, kind of like Sierra already touched on. Number 2 would be your when. So when do you want to save by? What is the timeline that you're working within? And then your why would just be really articulating and defining specifically what the goal is that you're working towards. And so when I'm teaching this to my clients and just sharing it on Instagram, I usually like to remind people that you can put it in the form of a statement, which is basically, I'm going to blank for the next blank so I can blank. And so it could be something like, I'm going to save $150 per paycheck for the next 12 months so I can achieve my goal of, saving my emergency fund or whatever it might be. And I always challenge people to actually write down these goals and paste it the same way you would do with affirmations. I'm sure, Kendall, you'd work with affirmations and money mindset the same way you would put it up somewhere so you see it all the time. I encourage my clients to write their goals in that way. And really make it something tangible and that they're able to hold themselves accountable to. So that's one tip. Thank you. And then the second tip I would say is, once you have that clear goal set, really hold yourself accountable by paying yourself first. And so what this means is that essentially when you're paying yourself first, you're prioritizing savings. It doesn't always have to be savings, but typically it's savings. Whatever money goal that you're working towards, you're prioritizing that before you do anything else with your money. And this is a way of ensuring that you're actually meeting those goals, as opposed to getting your paycheck, not saving right away, and then waiting till the end of the month and finding that, oops, I don't have enough money. So get that paycheck, pay yourself first, transfer that money straight to savings so you don't even miss it. It's gone. It's in that account nice and safe where it should be. And then you're still able to enjoy the money that you've earned because you've been intentional, you've set that goal, you've made sure that it's been transferred to a safe place. And you're paying yourself first and you're keeping yourself the top priority when it comes to your savings goals. So those are my two biggest tips. Trust me, it works. I will sing this from the mountaintops, like pay yourselves first. If you're not, do it. I promise you, it will change your life.
I love that.
I love the idea of the 3 W's too. Like that's just such a fun way to remember the what, when, why of everything. I love that. So now we're going to move on to talking about budgeting. And this was obviously a really major topic point of everyone. So how do you start a budget? And this can look a little different depending on what your income looks like, whether you have a variable income, low income, or whatever. So Miriam, can you tell us a little bit about creating a budget that's based on an individual's financial situation?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope you guys can hear me. Creating a budget, look, if somebody tells you it's easy, they're lying. It's hard. It's really hard to figure out your budget, honestly. Like it's the first time, and even when you set it, it's probably going to take you a few months to even get it like all the way correct. So number one, don't feel bad if you don't have the perfect budget and you're not abiding by it. Like that's perfectly fine. I think the most important thing when starting the process is knowing your numbers. You need to know 3 numbers, I believe: your income, your fixed expenses, and your variable expenses, right? So if you have variable income, meaning like you don't make the same amount of money every single month, I would just budget, personally, if I had variable income, with the lowest amount of money that you anticipate that you would make in a month, right? So it's nice if you make extra, then you can allocate that money to like, your goals, but you want to budget off the like, I would maybe lowest or median, or like what you usually on average make, right? Because you don't ever want to allocate money that you're not going to bring in, because then that's going to like break your budget and you're going to be upset. And again, that's not your fault. It's not your income. Just don't count money that you know might not come in. But everybody, you need to know your number. So, write down your income, then you write down all your fixed expenses, and that's a lot easier than your variable. Your fixed, like that's your expense. Those are your expenses that stay the same every single month, right? So your rent, any loan, because loan payments are installment loan, payments, so they are the same every single month as well. If you have any subscriptions, usually those are all the same every single month as well. So, write those all out. At this point, you might also want to go through your subscriptions or any of those expenses and see if those are things that you even need or are necessary, right? So, for example, like when I first started, I had like Apple Music, Spotify, Netflix, Hulu, literally so many things. And I was like, do I really need all of these, right? Amazon Prime, right? And, it's a need versus want situation, right? And you kind of do have to make some sacrifices, especially if you are trying to reach, these debt-free goals, these, savings goals, these investing goals, whatever the case may be. I have a sister, we're a year apart, we share subscriptions. Maybe you can do that with people, but right. So fixed expenses are easier, right? Then variable expenses is kind of where it starts getting a little bit tricky. So there are 2 ways I recommend you trying to figure out your variable expenses. The one thing you can do is go back, look at like, past months, past 2 months, pick like an average month. Don't pick like December where, expenses are usually high, or, just pick like a regular, let's say February, maybe March, because February is a short month, but look at your expenses for that month. You can see how much money you spend on food, how much you spend on gas, any other variable expenses, maybe get your nails done, your hair done, whatever the case may be, right? Or you can track it going forward, right? If you don't want to go back and, look at your past statements, just start today. Start tracking for like 2-3 weeks, and that can give you an idea of what your variable expenses look like, right? And then from there, you can depends, right? I mean, everybody budgets differently. I set categories. I set variable spending categories. Some people, they'll set like savings goals or investing goals or amount of money that they're going to put towards debt. And then the rest of that is just, the rest of the money that's left over is for spending, right? And they don't necessarily track every single dollar, right? And that's fine, right? So it's important to find what works for you, right? So maybe you are the type of person that's going to, you say every single paycheck, I'm going to put $300 into my savings account, and then I'll maybe put like an extra $100 towards that, and everything else is just free. Like I'm just gonna spend it, put it towards my food. And there is no right or wrong way to budget as long as it works for you, right? And as long as you're working and meeting those goals that Sierra and Ayana talked about, right? So, but for me personally, I set categories because I have a huge takeout problem and I need to make sure I'm tracking my food budget. So what I personally do, I'll tell you guys, is I have 2 checking accounts and I get paid into one checking account. All my bills come out of that account, and then every single time I get paid, I'll transfer a certain amount into a separate checking account that I consider my spending account. And it'll be like $400 every paycheck, like $200 for food, $50 for gas, like $50 for personal care, and then like $100 for miscellaneous. And that $400 is what I have until I get paid again. Everything else has already been allocated. That's it, right? So that is what I do. Again, it's up to you. And don't forget, it's going to take you some time to figure out your budget. It's okay. But just remember what you're working towards, set your goals, and you are going to have to make some type of, I would say, cut some things out, right? The other thing is it's really important to me to include fun or something that you enjoy in your budget, because I'll just use myself as an example. I'm currently paying off debt, right? When I first started, I was very, very strict, like very strict on my budget. Like I was like, this is how much you're spending on this. You can't do anything. You can't go out. You can't hang out with your friends, nothing, right? And that's just not sustainable. Okay, it's not a sustainable way to live. So I think it's important to, you know, if you like getting your nails done, get your nails done. Like if that makes you happy, if it brings you joy, Marie Kondo, you know, do it, right? It's all about moderation. And still meeting those goals. Like I think that's what's important, right? At the end of the day, like you only have one life and you don't want to just be like in the house, you know, just looking at your spreadsheets and crunching numbers and just, you know, I don't know, like I just feel like life is meant to be lived, but in moderation and meeting those goals. Like you can do both, like it's possible. Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's
Yeah, and I love what you said about it takes time to figure out the budgeting system that works for you. And it's not gonna, it takes time. It takes a couple months. So if the first 2 or 3 or even 4 budgets that you make fail, that does not mean you're a failure. Like you're figuring out the budgeting system that works for you. So one thing that a lot of people asked about was how to break out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle and basically figuring out how to allocate money when you're in that process. So Ayana, would you mind telling us a little bit about what you share with clients when they're in that situation?
Yeah, totally. I love everything that Miriam touched on, and I don't want to overlap with what she said because a lot of what she said I agree with when it comes to budgeting and that whole thing. But when it comes to the paycheck to paycheck cycle, I want to be very sensitive here because I know this is a very serious issue and it can sometimes be about your perception too, because what I found in my experience is that many people aren't actually living paycheck to paycheck. They actually just don't have any awareness or clarity about where their money is going at all. And because of that, they feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm not saying that everyone is in this situation. I know there are some people that do have lower incomes, bills that are not in proportion to what they're actually earning. So I don't want to, you know, pretend that that doesn't happen. But what I've really found is that when I assign my clients the very first assignment that they do, which is a spending audit of their last 3 months of spending, and I have them categorize what's going to food, what's going to the other category, like the black hole of spending that you don't ever look at because you don't want to actually face, you know, what you're actually spending money on and how much you're spending at Target and on Amazon and on DoorDash. Like I spend a lot of money on DoorDash. That's just me. So, you know, doing that spending audit, I always, even if you're not a client of mine, you need to audit your spending and actually see where you're starting from, because I don't think you can accurately budget if you don't have any awareness of where you're spending your money currently. And that's why so many of us feel like we're failing with a budget. It's because we're building a budget that's either too restrictive or it doesn't align with the way that we currently spend. And so we try it for a month. We can't keep it because we overspend and then we feel like a failure and we give up and we never face our money issues again. So I think that auditing your spending is number one, to get clear on if you're actually living paycheck to paycheck. And then from there, you actually have a better sense of where your money is going. So you can actually build a realistic budget, not a dream budget, and work towards, you know, the bigger goals that you have. Maybe you do want to get to a point where you're saving more money or you're paying more towards your debt. But the very first step that I think is actually determining, number one, am I actually living paycheck to paycheck? Do I have an income problem or do I have a spending problem? And then from there, you can actually make some more smart decisions, I feel like.
I love that. That's really helpful. And thinking about, and all the conversations that we're having, thinking about how does this information translate to an individual's situation and finding out what works best for them. So I really, really love that answer. So we briefly touched on emergency funds and how they're different from sinking funds, but we didn't dig into it very much. So Lexa, would you mind telling us a little bit more about emergency funds, what they're for, where to keep them, etc.?
Yes. Okay. So this is actually like the perfect question because today I was talking about on my Instagram stories that I went to go get my oil changed because apparently that's something that you're supposed to do pretty regularly. And what I didn't realize was that there's also other maintenance you're apparently supposed to regularly do on your car. I don't know why no one told me. Okay, this is a complete shock to me that my transmission fluid could have metal in it, but apparently that's not a good thing. So I had to shell out like almost $200 for a transmission change on top of my oil change. And I was thinking about the fact that, oh, and also, sorry, my cat thinks that she needs to be the center of attention. So if you see her, it's because she wants you to know that she's here. So I was thinking to myself that, oh, there she is. Yes, I'm so sorry about that. She needs her spotlight. I was thinking about the fact that 2 years ago, I know me. I know I've been in that same situation before, and that would have been what felt like an emergency to me. The idea, like it's something that I could have planned for. I didn't know exactly, of course, when I was going to need my transmission fluid. I didn't even really know it was a thing, but I do know the idea that your car is supposed to have these sort of scheduled maintenance, whether we like it or not. But I never planned for those things. So I know that myself 2 years ago would have ended up just putting that money on a credit card or hoping that I somehow had enough in my bank account to cover it and I would somehow get by, or I would just kind of just tell the person it's no big deal, I'll put it off for a little bit longer, and then probably end up costing myself more in the long run because I wasn't taking care of my car in the way that I should have been. And it got me thinking about emergency funds because I really do think that us talking about sinking funds earlier, a lot of what we consider to be emergencies aren't emergencies in the way that we think that they might be. Like, let's be honest, today wasn't an emergency. It was something that I could have seen coming. And thankfully I did, because I had thought back to myself, I have a car maintenance fund and that is where I can take this money from. So that was past Lexa being good to future Lexa, knowing, hey, you're probably not going to know what's coming up, but something with your car is going to happen. Whereas there are other things in life that we can't prepare for. So the same thing with the car situation. I can see regular car maintenance coming. I know my 2002 Ford Taurus is probably going to need new tires at some point, but we don't plan for things like your car completely breaking down and not being usable anymore, or getting in, hopefully never, but a really bad accident where you have medical bills, you're off of work, and you're paying for this new car, and all of these things that come up that we hope that those don't happen. And those aren't things that we can see coming. Those are your emergencies. And things like that take up so much of our mental and spiritual and emotional energy that we don't want to have to also be allocating all of that energy toward worrying about our finances. And of course, there are going to be times that even your emergency fund can't cover some of the things that you want it to. But the idea is that you have this lump sum of cash there for those times that something happens that you could not have seen coming. And I think 2020 has shown all of us that even if we think that our income is, recession proof or we're good to go, our income's always going to be coming in, that things happen that we literally had no idea was going to happen. And it's really important for your future self to have that there. And part of that I think is really important is that you have ease of access to that money. So I hear a lot of times people ask me like, well, what is the point of keeping this large sum of money in a bank account where it's fighting against inflation and it's probably never going to win inside of that account? Like we talked about earlier, there are high yield savings accounts. You can earn a little bit more on that money. But let's be honest here, while it's great, and yes, I love high yield savings accounts, the difference between 0.05% and 0.5%, while it does make some of a difference, it's still losing against inflation. and I understand where people are coming from, that this money is just sitting there, it's not doing anything for me. But the way I like to look at it is it is doing something for you. It's there for future you to make sure that you have that money when you need it, because you want to make sure if these things come around and you need access to that cash, that it's there and you're not sitting waiting for weeks to pull it out of an investment account. Because I have so many people ask, shouldn't I just invest it? But what a lot of people don't realize is that it can take like weeks. I just tried to pull some money out of an investment account and it took like a month and a half. You don't want to have to wait weeks to a month and a half to take out that money when you need it, because that's probably going to be really stressful and you're just going to add a bunch of stuff on top of this already stressful period of your life that you don't want to have to worry about. So generally speaking, again, I don't really like telling people what to do, but if I were you, I would not put it inside of an investment account. I would just pick a high yield savings account, throw it in there. And another common question that I hear a lot is, how much should I have inside of an emergency fund? How much do we need to prepare for these things that we can't really honestly prepare for? And I never have a specific number to give people, because I do think that it depends a lot on your situation. One common idea is that people will tell you either the typical like $1,000 emergency fund, baby emergency fund. If you are on my page, you know how I feel about that. But another one is 3 to 6 months, which I do think is a really good way to look at it. But another way that I like to tell people to look at it is look at your situation. What are your expenses like? What is your lifestyle like? Let's be honest here, like some college kid who's living on a dorm or living with their parents and have pretty low expenses, they probably don't need as much inside of an emergency fund as like a single parent who have like 4 or 5 kids who are financially relying on them and they are the sole income earner for their household. That person is probably going to need more of a safety net. And of course, there are so many other variables that go in that, but just kind of generally speaking, probably going to need more than the college kid living on a dorm without a lot of expenses. So I think looking at your lifestyle, looking at your income, if you lost your income, is there another income that could support you and your family, or are you it? And then I also think you really want to sit there and look at, what is my risk tolerance? Like, am I willing to take a risk for keeping this money inside of this account that I don't want to just be sitting there? But is it serving a purpose for me and my family? What makes you feel good at night? I think we've all done a really good job about talking about the fact that money isn't just money. This is something that people care about so much, and it has such a deep effect on us because it really is a huge part of our lives. It affects pretty much everything that we do in this society. So I think there's a lot to be said about coming up with a number that makes you feel good and relaxed and not so stressed. There's so much to be said about that. So I think that's really important.
I love it. Sorry, it's my turn. I'm playing. I was like, yeah, who's talking? No, I love everything you just said. And I think emergency funds are so important. So I think thanks for sharing all of that. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about debt repayment, because debt is a huge thing in your personal financial journey. It is something that causes so many people stress, and so many people are like, how the frick do I get out of this? Because it's terrible. So Charlotte, do you want to tell us a little bit about the debt repayment strategies and just kind of how to tackle it?
Yeah, definitely. So the first step when you're getting ready to pay off debt is to come to terms with your debt and figure out how much debt you're in. So I always have my clients compile everything together, list out where the debt is coming from, how much the balance is, interest rate, and then what their minimum monthly payment is. So then once I have all of that information together and in one place, then I tell them about 2 different debt repayment strategies. And the most popular ones are the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. Now, my personal preference is the debt avalanche, which is when you prioritize paying off debt in the order of highest to lowest interest. So while paying the minimum payment on all of the other debts, you're going to send as much extra money as you feel comfortable sending towards that debt with the highest interest rate. And then once it's paid off, then you lump that amount into the debt with the next highest interest rate, and so forth. Similar to the debt avalanche is the debt snowball, which instead of prioritizing interest rate, you're paying it off in the order to lowest to highest balance. Now, while the debt avalanche can save you money and interest over time because you are tackling those highest interest debts first, the debt snowball can be really powerful for staying motivated. So I always tell my clients, like, you have to decide what motivates you more. Personally, I'm much more motivated by saving money. So I am paying off those highest interest debts as quickly as possible. Whereas others, they'll say, if I have this much money on a high interest debt, or there's a lot of debts that are kind of similar levels in interest, they're going to feel more motivated using the snowball and getting those quick wins. So those are the two primary strategies. And it's important to know the pros and cons of each. Debt avalanche will help you save money and interest most likely overall, whereas the snowball is good for those quick wins.
I love that. No, and I think they're both really great methods. And I think it's really strategically looking at what is your debt, what are your balances, what do you got to do to be able to get out of it. So I think that was really great. Miriam, I know you shared that you have been on your debt journey for a long time. How do you stay motivated? How do you kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel when it gets tough?
Okay. Hi. So for me, I'm a teacher, right? So I don't know, when I first started my Instagram account, I saw like a lot of people paying off a lot of debt in a short period of time, and which is awesome. Like, I mean, no shade to any of those people, but for me as a teacher, and Charlotte knows because she's a teacher as well, there's like literally people paying off more debt than I make in a year, So my number one thing is like to never compare my debt-free journey to anybody else's, because it's my journey and it's mine alone. But that's really hard. Like, it's really hard on social media to do that, right? But you have to remember that people are sharing things with you on social media, and they choose what they share with you, right? And most times it's a highlight reel. I feel like in the personal finance community, not so much. I mean, it is a highlight reel, but like I think some of us are more vulnerable with sharing, some of our stories and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think social media is like, it's a highlight reel, right? People are not going to share really like their lows with you, which is fine, but you do have to remember that when you are comparing yourself. So don't compare yourself to other people, because you may just be starting out, somebody might have already been on this journey for 2, 3, 4 years, right? They already have all this personal finance knowledge. They have already built up this muscle, right? Where they're paying off debt and saving and stuff like that. So that's my number one thing. Like, don't compare your journey to anybody else's. The other thing for me personally is something that Sierra mentioned earlier when she was talking about goals and like celebrating milestones. I'm such a huge like advocate for that when you're paying off debt, because if you're staring down like 40, 50, 60, $100,000 of debt, that can get really daunting, right? And you could have paid off 10,000, but you're like, oh my God, I still have 90,000 left. But it's like, no, girl, you paid off 10,000 though. Like, celebrate that 10,000. Like, that's a lot more than you would have paid off, like, I don't know how many months ago. So I think it's very important to celebrate all of your milestones while you're paying off debt. And it doesn't have to be like a huge thing. Like, maybe you go get ice cream, get some cupcakes, I don't know, celebrate, get your favorite bottle of wine, whatever the case may be, go to your favorite restaurant, get some takeout. It's important to celebrate everything, I believe, right? Just because, again, when you have a large sum of debt, like, it's just like, it may seem like you're never going to get there, right? But you have to think about how far you've already come, and that's going to motivate you to keep going, right? And then the last thing I'm going to mention is just your why. All right. So why are you paying off debt? Why do you want to be financially independent? What is it that you are trying to go for, right? For me, I am a first generation, child of single parent household. My goal, obviously I want financial independence for myself, but to build generational wealth for my family, right? And also to help my mom in retirement. There's so many things that keep me motivated on this journey. So I think those things, it's important to keep those in the forefront, right? And that's like, you can make a vision board. You can post some, make a vision board, post it somewhere where you can see it. It could also just be like a background on your computer or your phone, just something you can go to where you're like, oh, this is why I'm doing this, right? This is why I'm budgeting. This is why I'm tracking my spending. This is, it's the bigger goal, right? Like, for me personally, another thing is I love to travel, and 10, 15 years from now, I don't want to ask anybody to PTO so I can travel. I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna get up and go whenever I want. So I mean, it is hard, especially with social media. It's difficult. Oh, sorry, I want to add one more thing. Last thing. Set goals, smart goals, as Sierra mentioned. Don't just be like, oh, I'm paying off $20,000 of debt this year, and that's not logistically possible on your income with your expenses. Like, you need to set goals that are realistic, because if you don't meet them, you're gonna be further like demotivated, right? So it's important to set goals that you can achieve. And even if you don't, if you're off by $50, $100, still celebrate that, because that's further than you would have come. And one more thing, because I keep saying things. Accountability is very important. I think accountability is having an accountability buddy, community, whether that's the debt-free community on Instagram or wherever you hang out, TikTok, whatever the case may be. Because when I first started my Instagram, that's why I started it. It was accountability, because I was ashamed, right? What Kendall was talking about. I didn't want to talk about money to anybody. I was like, why do I even have debt? Like, I was so ashamed of my debt, right? But the reality is, most of it was my student loan debt. And I had to take out student loans to go to college. Like, there's no way I was going to pay for it. So now I've accepted that, right? It's like, if I didn't take out debt, I wouldn't have the career that I have, right? So I've come to terms with that. But at the time, there was literally nobody in my life that I was comfortable sharing that with. So even if that's just somebody on Instagram that's like, hey, like, you know, you can hit me up, you can DM me. I will respond to you, I promise. I would be like, hey girl, how are you doing? Like, seriously, just find anybody that you trust, whether that's a sibling, a spouse, probably not the parent, because it's hard to talk to parents about money. Maybe not them, but you know, just find anybody that can hold you accountable. So I said like 100 things just now. So this is recorded, so if you didn't take notes, Sierra will send this to you. But
I love it. All of those are really, really good. And I think accountability is so huge, because it is a journey, that is for sure. I love all of those tips. Okay, investing is going to be our last topic. I know we may go 5-ish minutes over, but I'm going to try to keep it to an hour, because I know finance is a lot for everyone. All right, Charlotte, order of operations when it comes to investing.
Yes. So there's a couple things that you want to keep in mind when you're getting started. And like Lexa had mentioned, you want to make sure that you have your emergency fund in place, and in a place that you can easily access it. So you want to make sure that you have that set aside, because like she said, it can take weeks to get back money that you have invested when you need it. So make sure that you have your emergency fund in place. You also want to make sure that if you have any high interest debt, like credit card debt, payday loans, things like that, you want to prioritize paying those off, because if we look at the history of the stock market and we assume an annual rate of return of like 8%, it's likely that, you know, a credit card is still going to have a higher interest rate than what you can earn back on your investments. So then if you have an employer retirement contribution match, you definitely want to take advantage as well of that as well, because that's free money basically from your employer. And how that works, if you have a 401k, 403b, 457b, whatever, typically there is a percentage of your salary that if you contribute towards that retirement account, let's say 3%, if you contribute 3% of your salary to your 401k, your employer would match that. And then you'd have a 6% contribution. That's amazing. Now you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that full match, because if you only invest 2%, your employer is only going to match 2%, and then you only have 4%. So definitely take advantage of an employer contribution match if you are offered one. You also want to keep in mind that contributions towards retirement accounts tend to be more tax efficient. So take a look at your 401k, your employer sponsored account, as well as individual retirement accounts like traditional IRA, Roth IRA, if you qualify for the income requirements there. And then once you've kind of taken a look at all of those things, now you can look into different taxable brokerage accounts. And keep in mind that mutual funds, index funds, and ETFs, those are going to tend to be less risky than investing in individual stocks, because all of those types of accounts, those are diversified. I know we have a lot of questions about investing, so I'm going to stop it there so that we can continue.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, what is investing, and what are the different types of retirement accounts, and how do you choose them, Jess?
So a lot of people, like when I like first coach them, they think investing is like this very complicated thing, and it's purposely left complicated so the industry continues to make money. So, like old school, like financial advisors, so you would need to pay for like this high caliber advice. But essentially investing is putting your money in an asset, whether it's the stock market, real estate, or like early stage investing in a company that that you expect to grow over time. So obviously investing in the stock market is a lot easier for regular retail investors because you don't need as much capital as when you're investing in real estate. And you're essentially, so like, for example, you think Apple is going to go up in the long term. So you're putting your money there expecting that the value of these companies are going to go up. But it's not, a lot of people get tripped up and they think it's so complicated. And then another piece of it is that a lot of people are already invested and they don't realize it. I get a lot of people saying like, oh, I need to buy individual stocks. Like I haven't invested anything yet. And I'm like, hold on, like, don't you have you have a 401k, right? And they're like, oh, well, like I just picked a random fund. Like I don't even think I'm invested yet. But then it kind of like walk them through and like explain that investing in the total stock market is investing, and like not to focus on investing on individual stocks until you're understanding the risk of that. And then, so that's just like kind of like a basic overview of really what investing means. And then, so like when you get into retirement accounts, I get, like a lot of questions on that because that's obviously, people want to retire. And at the most basic level, most people have some investments in retirement accounts. And there's so many different acronyms. Everyone gets very confused. What is a 401k? What's an IRA? And they just get very tripped up over the names. But really, at the most basic level, your 401k is employer sponsored, and your investments there are being taken directly out of your paycheck. And you can choose for that to be either pre-tax or post-tax. But with those investments, it'll, as Charlotte was saying earlier, it'll be a percentage taken out of your paycheck. You'll probably see a lot of people talking about maxing out your retirement accounts. You do not have to max it out. That's just how much you can put there. If you can only put 5% of your paycheck into your 401k, that is totally fine. Like it is what is working for you. It's just there if you're able to invest a higher amount. The one caveat though with your 401k is that your employer picks the investments. So you can't pick any type of investment. Sometimes they have higher fees on them that you would want to pay, that you don't really want to pay. So that's really like the one piece of it. But I do recommend everyone get at least their employer match if you can, and then focus on your IRA. So your IRA is your individual retirement account, and you get to pick the investments, but it's your dollars, and you can also decide between pre-tax or post-tax. And that's really like the big decision. It's not really what account should you choose. You're more deciding on when do you want to pay taxes. So, like if you expect to, when you retire, to not be having any income at all, it doesn't really, it makes sense to, use a tax deferred account because you think you're going to have a much lower tax bracket later. But like it's here or there, like whatever works for you. It's not really, like you don't know exactly what's going to happen, because I'm sure that's quite a bit down the line. So if you're always focusing on like the little nuances like taxes, I think it's more important to just get started as like as early as you can. And then when you are deciding the investments in both of the accounts, one very important thing that I wish I knew sooner was look at the expense ratio on your investments. It is so important. When I started my first job, I did not know what to look for. I just selected the first one I saw that was on their list. It had almost like a 1% expense ratio, which that 1%, just like your investments compound every single year and add on to each other, the fees compound each other. And I was able to roll it over to one that get like 0.02%. So end up saving so much money, but people are just not educated and don't know really to look for that.
No, I think that's all really, really good. Charlotte, don't kill me, but I know Kendall has to get off and I want to make sure, are you okay? Or you have 10 minutes or how long do you have?
Me?
Yeah.
I still have another 15 minutes until my
Okay, cool.
time.
I just want to make sure that I ask you one question before you hop off. So I just wanted to double check with you. Okay, this one's for you, Lexa. What is a taxable brokerage account and how do you pick one?
Yeah. Okay. So Jess was just talking about the tax advantaged accounts. So 401ks, IRAs, if you work for a nonprofit, 403bs, all of those things that sound really complicated and not fun at all. They are though, I promise. I wish they would have named them something more entertaining because they really are important. A taxable account is usually what people invest in after they have maxed out those contributions. So usually what that looks like is there's a set amount every year that you can invest inside of a 401k or an IRA if you qualify to be able to invest inside of those accounts. And a lot of people ask, okay, what happens next? What if I am able to put all of that money into that account? Am I done investing? Can I not invest anymore? That is generally when these taxable brokerage accounts come in. And something I really want to make sure I make clear, because I didn't know this for the longest time, and I've heard from a lot of people that they didn't know either, is that there is a difference between the account itself and the investment side inside of that account. So I always refer to it as an Easter egg basket. The basket is the account. So whether that is a taxable brokerage account through Robinhood is one that we all have heard of a lot of recently. I don't like that that app, but a lot of people know about it. So through Robinhood or through your 401k or through your IRA, those are the basket. And then your investments, so index funds, ETFs, mutual funds, or just individual stocks, those are the little Easter eggs inside of the basket. So you can't just have a basket and nothing in it and expect yourself to be invested. You want to make sure that you are investing inside of, or you're investing in things inside of that account. I know so many people that have come to me saying look, I threw $2,000 inside of an IRA 10 years ago and it hasn't done anything. And what they don't realize is it's because they had that money sitting inside the account, but they didn't make investments in it. And I think that gets overlooked a lot. I didn't know that when I first started investing. So that is really important. So I don't think it's so much about, when it comes to taxable brokerage accounts, the account that you use. It's more about deciding what kind of investor you want to be and what kind of investments you want to make inside of that account.
I love all of those. Thank you so much for sharing what you wish you would have known too, because I think we've all could save a lot of people's time. Sure. And then investing for financial independence. Jess, I know you are huge on that. Do you want to share a little bit about it?
Yeah. So financial independence is really, just having that nest egg that you have enough invested in the market. So when you do decide to retire, you can essentially just live off of what's you have invested by, taking a certain percentage out of your account every single year. And that's, what you can live off of. So the biggest thing for that is, I would say, invest early. Invest early. I feel like a broken record because I probably say that all the time, but I think people just don't realize, even if you're 20 and you could only put $100 a month, if you start instead of starting at 25, if you started at 20 and only had a little bit invested, that money will compound exponentially. And the longer it's in the market, the more it's going to compound and the more it's going to grow each year. So the less you have to actually invest and contribute to. The next thing is really just pay off your high interest debt early, because you want to be putting your money towards assets that are going to grow. You want to put less of your money towards any liabilities. Obviously, a mortgage is a little bit different, but high interest debt, student loans, credit cards, anything like that, try to knock that out as much as you can. And then the next piece is really creating measurable goals. I work in finance and I work in data. So I love charts. I love graphics. I make dashboards all day at work. So I'm obsessed with that. So for example, like my goal right now is to have 100K invested. So when I first started out, I was like, yeah, I can definitely do that. Like I didn't set like realistic goals for myself. And I think people get very like tripped up by like, oh, I want to have $1 million saved up by this age because that's what other people are doing. But I think it's really important, as you guys were saying earlier, set smart goals and be realistic and really know your why. Because if you don't know why you're doing it, then you're not going to be motivated and then you'll probably not stick with it. And then the last piece is live below your means. When you get a raise, you do not need to get a fancier bag, fancier shoes. People probably won't notice. I can promise you that. Like I am a reform shopaholic. Like I literally used to like feel the need to have designer everything before I found this whole community. So yeah, like when you get raises, of course, you can treat yourself a little bit, but don't let your means, like continue to increase too much.
Yeah, I love that. All of those are really, really good tips. Favorite investment apps, Lexa?
Yeah, okay. So I have two depending on what your circumstances are and what you're looking for. My ultimate favorite one, which is like the OG for me that I ever knew about and used as a beginner, is M1 Finance. I think it is one of the most like beginner friendly investment apps in my opinion. Before I really even knew anything about investing, that is what got me into investing. So I really like that platform, and it's really good if you're looking for those IRAs, the tax advantaged accounts, because they have those. They even have some if you're self-employed. They have tons of different options, and I just think that it's very user friendly. If you are past that point and you're wanting to get a little bit more into investing and you're okay with kind of having a more of a learning curve and you already kind of know the basics, I know that Robinhood is the one that's in the news a lot, and it's the one that people always ask me about. It is not my favorite. They don't have a very good history of having good customer service or good business practices, but I do love Webull, which it's like we, us, and then bull, like the thing with the horns, the animal, that thing. And it's very similar to Robinhood. You can invest in individual stocks on that platform, but they do have a history of having better customer service and business practices and all of that. So those are the two that I've used the most often, and depending on what you're looking for, those are my favorites.
I love it. I love it. Kendall, are we good, or do you want to answer your question first? You good?
I'm still good. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to make you late. Okay, Jess, how do you build generational wealth?
I think generational wealth and financial independence kind of really go hand in hand, because if you're able to get to a place where you are financially independent and you can really like live off your investments, you should be able to be in a position to have generational wealth. But I would say like the two most popular ways would really be through the stock market. Personally, I do so with consistently investing in low-cost index funds, taking advantage of tax advantage accounts, but then also taking advantage of taxable brokerage accounts, because that way you can get access to it earlier. If you have kids, take advantage of 529s or custodial accounts. And there's a lot of different options out there, but my main piece of advice is just to stay consistent, continue to keep investing, whether you want to do so through the stock market. Another popular option is through real estate as well, but just continue to keep investing and live below your means.
Yeah, no, I love all of those, and generational wealth is so, so important. So I think we have one other question. A ton of people asked if there was one single advice that had stuck with you on your financial journey, what would it be? And so I kind of want to just have everyone go around really quickly and just share their advice. I'm going to start with Kendall because I know she has to go here at 1:15. Did you hear the question or no? Okay.
Yeah, one piece of advice.
Yeah, and then your favorite personal finance book. So we'll just kind of go around and share all of that. For closing, you want to start with? We'll start with you.
I think the best piece of advice for sticking on your journey is kind of touching on what Miriam has already said, which is celebrating yourself and keeping your blinders on. It's really easy to get distracted by somebody else's journey and the progress that they're making, and just really remembering to stay in your lane and just kind of like put your blinders on. Don't worry about that. Also with the celebrating, I love that you brought that up, Miriam, because I do this. So the way that I chose to celebrate accomplishments, whether it's in my own finances or with my business, is I have champagne in my fridge with like a sticky note on it. Like when I hit this milestone, I will pop that bottle of champagne. So that is the way that I choose to celebrate. And it's like every time I open my fridge, it's a reminder of like what I'm working towards. And so I love having that in my fridge as just a reminder. And I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to hit that so I can just pop it. So yeah, celebrating yourself is huge. Yeah. Oh, and then the personal finance book.
Yep.
So this isn't really a personal finance book, but because of mindset, you guys know it's coming. It's a book called The Soul of Money. And I'm blanking on who the author is right now, but The Soul of Money, it really dives into just the concept of sufficiency and feeling sufficient in all areas of your life, but mainly money.
I love it.
Really, really good one.
I love it. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
Ayana, what would you say is your best financial advice that has stuck with you in your favorite personal finance book?
Yeah, so even though I knew this question was coming, I feel like I'm put on the spot a little bit. So I don't have advice specifically for my journey, but I just want to leave the audience with this one final word. Just like we're all here together talking about money, being open and honest and vulnerable, like don't be afraid to talk about money, because I truly believe that when we begin to gain personal finance education, literacy, and confidence, that it really is one step towards becoming the best version of ourselves. Like we try to take care of our health, we try to take care of our skin, whatever it might be. But so many times, especially as women, we neglect our financial health. So I really just want to say, don't be afraid to talk about money. It's time to change the narrative, especially as women, like I said before. And just keep in mind that by you becoming more financially literate, that doesn't just impact your own life, it impacts generations going ahead of you. It impacts your friends, your family, your entire circle. So yeah, definitely don't be afraid to talk about money. It's super important. And I'm super excited to be a part of doing this and being surrounded by you ladies, doing this whole thing that we're doing together. And then I actually grabbed my copy of my favorite book. It's not a personal finance book necessarily, but it's You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. It's great, a lot of mindset stuff. I know Kendall probably has it on her bookshelf too. I literally send a copy of this to every one of my coaching clients, because mindset is so much at the core of all that we do. Like we can have the perfect budget, the perfect saving strategies, but if our mind is still like poopy when it comes to money, then we're really not going to get the full benefit of the work that we're doing. And so if you feel like you have mindset issues, and even if you feel like you don't have them, because I didn't think I did, and I read this book and I was like, oh yeah, I did, about building wealth and things like that. So check this book out. You Are a Badass at Making Money. It's really good.
I love it. I love that. Miriam.
Hi, everyone. I feel like I already said mine about like just being focused on your journey, but I just like recently heard this one quote that I put up on my little letter board, but I don't even know if it's the right way, but it says, I did not get this far to only get this far. And I feel like this resonated with me like a lot. And it's not just about money, but it's literally like about every single thing in your life, you know? It's like, just don't focus on like what's ahead. It's really like, just, you know, you've come so far already, and you didn't come this far just to stop where you're at, right? Like keep going. If you feel demotivated, like, you know, like you can take a break, and it's okay. Like there are days where I'm like, I know I have food in the fridge, but I don't feel like cooking, and I'm going to order this pizza, and it's okay. It's going to be fine. I'm going to get this Uber Eats, and it's going to be okay. Like, you know, it's going to be fine. Like literally, like if you need to take a break, like spend time, you know, refilling your cup, you know, like, you know, spend time with people that you love, doing things that you love. For me, that's watching Netflix. And there's so much more ahead, you know. It's all about like progressing forward. I'm all about like progress over perfection. So just don't beat yourself up too much. Like this is like a total transformation that's going to happen. Like it's from the inside out. So you did not get this far just to get this far. Okay, you got it. But favorite book. Okay, so this is my favorite, recent favorite. I honestly just read this like late last year. And I think this is like kind of like a financial boot camp, honestly, in a book. It's like a 6-week boot camp. It can be a little bit tough at times, I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot of information. But I mean, there's a lot of information in here. Like all the stuff we covered basically is in here. He doesn't talk a lot about budgeting and paying off debt, but a lot about investing and saving. And he talks about money mindset. He calls it invisible money scripts. That's what Ramesh said he calls it. And he also talks about like a lot of times we don't realize, like, we get this stuff, like Kendall said, from our parents, like things that they've told us about money growing up and stuff like that. And that stuff is ingrained in us. So he addresses that in here as well. So yeah, this is definitely my favorite, I would say, so far right now.
I love it. Let's go with Lexa.
Yeah, okay. So I think like this is just like my one thing also that I would kind of leave everyone with is that I got really caught up in thinking that my values and expectations and what mattered to me needed to match what I was seeing around me. And it was kind of when I took a step back and I started asking myself, like, what do you want? Not what does the personal finance community want you to do, not what does this book tell you to do, but what is most important to you? Writing that down, being sure of yourself, sitting with it for a while, and knowing that that is perfectly okay. If your goals are different from someone else's or different from the majority, that is totally fine and that is valid, and it's worth working toward that goal, and you don't have to justify that to anyone. I thought for the longest time that I needed to justify my money decisions and my spending and my saving and how much I was saving and what I was doing with my money to everyone else, and that's just not true. If it's working for you, then it's working and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And if it's not working for you but it worked for everyone else, then do something else. That's totally okay. So that would be like the one thing that I wish I would have been able to tell myself a long time ago. My favorite book is also I Will Teach You to Be Rich, the same one that Miriam had. I actually haven't read the hard copy. I don't even have a hard copy of it because I have ADHD and I cannot sit through a whole book. So 10 out of 10 recommend the audiobook. He does an awesome job at narrating it and keeping you interested, and I feel like it's a little bit easier to get through. At least it was for me. I just listened to it in the car and I feel like I got so much from it. So definitely recommend.
I love it. And Jess.
Yeah, so I would say one thing that I've honestly personally learned and took a lot away from is that not to think too much into things. Like there are so many different options and different details that, people get tripped up on. And like, as I said earlier, when I first invested, I accidentally picked funds that were very expensive. And, it was a learning experience because I tried something else and then you like try something else. And I think it's important to just, just get started. Don't get too, tripped up on saving some money on taxes and, making sure you're saving little expenses here or there. I think, especially when you're starting out, it's not as much money usually. So it's not going to, have that much of an impact long term, and to just, like people will be like, oh, but like which high yield savings account should I try? Like just get started. You'll probably make mistakes, but you'll learn from it, and it's not the end of the world.
Totally. I love it. Do you have a favorite book?
So I was also gonna say I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I love him so much. There's so many books out there that are just like very like why I kind of started this whole thing was because I wanted to be like non-judgmental financial advice and not be like an old rich white guy that's just not relatable. And I feel like his book was just like put it in a way where like it's like a younger guy who you can like actually relate to and like actually entertaining, and it doesn't have to be like this kind of like black and white thing. And then one other book I'll say, because this is the third time we talked about that one. For anyone who's interested in like the FIRE movement, financial independence, even if you're not interested in retiring early, but just learning about building like a nest egg that you can feel financially independent and you can leave work one day if you so feel like it, definitely recommend like The Simple Path to Wealth. It's written by Mr. Money Mustache, who's like the main who kind of like started the whole movement, and basically, explains how really to build wealth through low cost index funds, how to really like build wealth through the stock market. And it's like really detailed and helpful perspective.
No, I love it. I love it. I'm going to check it out. I haven't heard of that one. So I'm going to look at it. Charlotte, I'm last. So you're second.
So the biggest thing that I learned is don't be afraid or don't devalue how much can happen when you're just starting small. So like, even if you only have like $25 a month to put towards something, that is still better than putting zero towards something. So like, start small, start somewhere, and don't be afraid to like trust your process wherever you are on your financial journey. My favorite book is Clever Girl Finance by Bola Shakumbi. And Clever Girl Finance, she's a huge Instagram account in the personal finance space. And she does a fantastic job of breaking down all of the possible foundations that you would need getting started on your journey. And she also released a second book, and it's Clever Girl Finance, Grow Your Money, that digs more into investing, topics like that. And it's written by a woman, and I really love that.
Love it. I love it.
Sierra, what about you?
My biggest piece of advice that I wish I would have told myself years ago is that I don't have to sprint to be debt free. And I think when I really started this journey, like, I wanted to be debt free more than I wanted to do anything in my freaking life. And so I think for me, I found myself feeling so defeated, but also not enjoying my life. And I stripped away all of the going outs, the buying myself clothes, the trips with my girlfriends to try to achieve this goal so hard. And so I think what I wish I would have told myself 4 years ago is like, enjoy your life, pay off your debt, but this isn't your whole life. And like, that is one thing that like I spent a lot of time focused around. God, the hours I spent looking at the spreadsheet to make sure it all added up and to make sure I didn't go over budget. And then I was over budget and I was pissed. And it's like, I realized my mindset was so messed up that I was never going to be debt free no matter how hard the spreadsheet added up. And so that is my biggest piece of advice is set realistic goals. It's not a sprint. This is the hardest journey that a lot of us are going to be on. Money is so stressful to a lot of people. So just be proud of yourself for even being on this call, diving into it. Like, it is all so much. So that's my biggest piece of advice. And my favorite book is You're a Badass at Making Money. So I did get stolen on that one. But yeah, I think that's my biggest piece of advice. Oh, and to stay in your lane. Like, don't listen to other people's stories. I mean, I live in San Francisco, and every person working in tax land, like, oh, I'm making 100K. It's like, great. You also probably have more debt than I do. So you know what? Just stay in your lane, everyone.
Awesome.
That's it.
Yay. Oh my gosh. This has been so fun. I dropped everyone's Instagram handles in the chat box. So be sure to go follow everyone. Everyone here has such amazing advice and stories and journeys. And if you are interested in learning more from them, reach out to any of these people here. These are all amazing women. And they're so nice. So be sure to follow everyone on Instagram. Sierra, any final thoughts?
I think just thank you all for coming. Thank you for all of your questions. And thank you to you guys for making this come to life. I definitely, Charlotte and I couldn't have done it without you. And I think your wisdom and your insights is just so appreciated. And I even learned things that I loved, like the 3 W's. That's my new thing. I love it. So I just think we're all here to learn from each other in the industry. There's so much to learn. So I just appreciate all of you guys more than you know. So.
And we will be posting the recording of today's event on Instagram. So we're going to send that out. You need to give us, Sierra and I, some time to look at it, email it, but then this will be reposted. So you can go back and watch. If you didn't have a notepad next to you, this information is not gone forever. So.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.